Many people are feeling a financial crunch, and when unemployment hits or hard times extend from days to months, it is really easy just to get behind and become overwhelmed with debt.
You actually may be able to protect your assets by filing a Chapter 7 or Chapter 13 bankruptcy.
And we have David Anderson, an attorney who specializes in bankruptcy, with us today to explain some of the options, ways you may be able to get debt relief and a fresh start. Now, David, do you want to just explain? I think it's a little bit confusing because there are different types of bankruptcy, and a lot of people don't know the difference.
Chapter 7 or Chapter 13 are the most common. Chapter 11 is for a large business typically, so we don't do that very much.
That's what you hear about when large companies,
But the biggest mistake people make is probably they wait too long, so they've squandered their retirement funds or their home equity when we could have protected that in bankruptcy. So if you're having financial difficulty and you can't really see a close light at the end of the tunnel, call a professional and see what the options are sooner rather than later.
Okay, so when we talk about kind of getting to that point, how do you know when maybe you're just having a hard time making ends meet, or maybe when you're getting to that crisis point?
Well, it's kind of the opposite of what the financial counselors will tell you. You should have some money saved for emergencies, you should pay down your debt, you should have home equity. When you don't have any of that, and then you have overwhelming debt, you're probably in trouble at that point. If all you can do is make minimum payments, you're going to be paying those for 20 or 30 years typically on credit cards or other high interest obligations. The other thing is you might have a home that has gone down in value and you can't refinance, and maybe the home is just too much. And so you have to talk about letting the home go. Bankruptcy is good for that. Or you've fallen behind on your home mortgage payments or your car payments, and you need to do a catch-up plan. Chapter 13 is good for that.
And these are some of the things that you want to do, or maybe reasons why, because I think that people might get to a certain point and they say, am I better off trying to maybe work this out, or should I file for bankruptcy?
Well, if you don't file for bankruptcy, you do not have much legal protection from debt. So not many people understand this, but if you cannot pay a debt, they can take you to court, get a court order. They can get a seizure order for your assets. This includes your bank accounts, your cash on hand, your car, and your home equity, and your other assets. So the reason you file for bankruptcy is that the bankruptcy law gives you a fresh start. It's every 8 years for Chapter 7. There's shorter time waits for Chapter 13. And you can either reorganize debt or cancel it completely, usually with Chapter 7. And you do that, and you can actually protect your home, you can protect your car, you can protect your wages and some of your other assets, the important ones. Congress has given us that in the bankruptcy law to give people that opportunity to start over.
And it is interesting because I know there are a lot of people who may have, 10 or 15 years ago, they may have never considered themselves to be in a position where they would be facing this, but honestly, our property values may not be worth what we thought they would be worth. We may be upside down on a vehicle at this point. There are a lot of people who are well-intentioned, hardworking people who believe in paying their obligations. They're just at their wits' end.
Well, it used to be that you could finance or refinance your home and draw out what equity you've built up over the years, or the equity that's artificially increased by market values even though you haven't paid down your debt. That was typically a temporary fix. So I was always seeing clients, even before the foreclosure crisis, they've sapped out all their home equity, and now they need to file bankruptcy because it wasn't enough. Now they don't even have that option, so they're usually seeing a bankruptcy attorney before they can refinance their house. Their homes are not really up for it anymore.
So if someone's watching and they're thinking about filing for bankruptcy, we're looking at a screen here that talks about Chapter 13, because we had mentioned Chapter 13 and 7.
Sure.
What is the specifics?
Okay, in a Chapter 13, it's a debt consolidation plan that's more based on a person's ability to pay rather than how much they owe. So they might have $50,000 in credit card debts, but the payment plan might be as little as $200 or $300 a month if that's all they can afford. And the idea is that they're actually paying more to creditors than if they paid nothing and went into Chapter 7. You can also save your home from foreclosure. Can't necessarily reduce the home loan on a first mortgage. Sometimes we can remove a second mortgage from the home. But if they're behind, rather than catch up in cash like the mortgage company wants, you can actually pay a little bit at a time extra to catch it up over 5 years. Same thing with a vehicle. If you're behind on your vehicle, or if they just hauled it away from your house and it's sitting on the repo lot and they want $15,000 to buy it back, you can actually do a payment plan, and usually they'll give it back to you while you're in Chapter 13.
Sounds like you're buying some time here.
You're buying some time. You're also settling debts for sometimes less than what you owe. A typical Chapter 13 is actually 10%, 20%, 50%, some 100%, but a lot of people cannot afford 100%
Okay,
plan.
so real quick, can you touch upon the things involved in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy?
Chapter 7 is no payment plan. Usually the unsecured debt that has no collateral don't get anything in a Chapter 7 unless there's some asset that's going to be sold. But most people can keep their home and their car if they want to, and they can afford to make those payments only. The unsecured debts usually go away in the discharge in Chapter 7. And Chapter 7 is for people that just cannot afford a payment plan. Some people make too much money to file a Chapter 7. I say too much money, that's a good problem to have,
Yeah, it
right?
is.
They're more going to be steered into Chapter 13 because they can afford to pay something back even if it's a percentage payment plan. Chapter 7 is for those that just don't have any money left over. After they pay their house payment, their car, their insurance, their gas, electricity, housing costs, transportation costs, there's just no money left over.
Well, David, it's definitely been a great conversation to start with you. I'm guessing that anxiety and fear must be what a lot of people go through.
It's kind of like going to the dentist. If you
Yeah.
don't fix it, it gets worse. So swallow your pride. We don't hurt anybody. It's not very painful other than, you know, in the mental part of it, that's all.
Great having a partner like you to go through this with us, and you're easy to get a hold of, an
Yes.
easy first call to make. So again, remember, the best advice, don't wait too long.
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you so much, David. We appreciate it.
Pleasure being here.
Don't go away. We'll be right back.